like appealing, you're not, because you're insecure. And then it really does come to, I built my own self-esteem off my own back. Without Tom, without him around, without my business, without money, without success, I just built my confidence. And so what does that mean? How do I just show up every day knowing that I could fail, knowing that I could have, you know, acne, knowing that my hair can fall out. Like I had over a year where I was very, you know, I had massive gut issues. So my hair was falling out, my nails were brittle, and I felt terrible about myself. So in that assessment of, I don't feel sexy, I feel super insecure in those moments, I was like, oh, it's your hormones. Work on your health, work on your hormones. Be the person that got up today and looked at my my blood levels, or be the person, right? So I started to build my confidence in being the person that told myself I was going to do something and then follow through. That was one piece. So it becomes these little notches of confidence that I would do.
Well, you became a problem solver.
Yes.
That's what confidence is essentially you take all the problems in your life, and instead of seeking ways to numb yourself or go into denial or just seeking highs, you problem solve. And then if some things can't be solved, you accept the outcome. That's what I mean by that is, I might problem solve, let's say I don't like my weight. Instead of going into denial or worrying about it or just seeking quick, you know, fixes, I learn how to manage my weight. I problem solve that situation. Now, if some problems are beyond me, I just accept some problems are beyond me, and I just accept the outcome of that problem not being solved. But what creates lack of confidence is you have a bunch of problems, but you have no way of resolving them, and you don't exercise any self-control or any methodology to resolve those problems. So you become overwhelmed. And in that moment of overwhelmness, you seek your partner to make you feel confident again, when really it has to come from your own problem-solving ability. So if you're ever struggling with your weight, with your health, with your appearance, with your income, whatever it is, with your friendships, until you problem-solve them, you're always going to lack confidence.
Well, I've never actually thought of it like that.
I love it. You problem-solved everything.
I love that. Look, I'm by far not perfect. Like, I do not want everyone to think that I show up every day utterly confident. I don't. But what I do is I know what it feels like to be confident. And so, like, even my jewelry, it's my way of suiting up to build my confidence. And then it becomes, when you work on yourself, it is a reflection of then how you show up in that relationship. So going back to the jealousy thing, if I started to even think about being jealous, I'd be like, oh, Lisa, this is a you thing. Now, I'm sure everyone at home right now is freaking out because I said it's a you thing. Obviously, there's going to be something, and you mentioned it earlier, that the person, your partner can be doing things that are very clear red freaking flags. So that isn't a you thing. That is you identifying that these are red flags. But if there isn't a red flag, then I start to ask myself, how are you showing up? But the jealousy thing, when I've seen women completely become a different human, like they go from happy, bubbly, they seem confident, and then now I've had friends who've done drive-bys, right? And what I mean by that is, like, he said he was out, I'm going to drive by his apartment to see if his car's still there. And I'm like, either you trust him or you ask him, hey, are you telling the truth? But this is actually a debate, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then checking partners' phones. What's your belief on checking your partner's phone? And so even you said earlier as well, you're insecure even now. So your partner, there's no room for him cheating, because you always you're always on top of that. What does that actually look like? And is that you checking his phone? Is that you checking his Instagram?
I'm actually a big advocate against checking phones. And the reason being is I've had my phone checked. It's a big violation when you don't know the context. And also the other thing is, because I know I'm jealous, I mitigate and limit the things that will cause me pain. I don't look for pain, because I already cause myself enough stress with that stuff. So I actually don't believe in checking phones. What I do believe instead is, when you get that urge to check somebody's phone, recognize what's changed in your intimacy. Something's changed that's making you want to check his phone. Something's happened, either that he's holding it differently, he's maneuvering differently, or your connection in general has changed and it's making you insecure. So if you're feeling the need to check the phone, check in on your intimacy. Have that conversation first and do all of those things. Now, if you're one of those people that really needs proof, really needs proof before you can do everything, what I would say is you're probably not strong enough to walk away anyway. If you're one of those people that needs red-handed evidence, you're probably going to find the evidence and not walk away. So what is the point of doing that? Only check the phone. I don't recommend it. If you've got the strength to walk away. If you've got the strength to walk away, you shouldn't even need to check the phone. Have the conversation. But usually what I find is the people that want to catch their partner just to show that they're not going insane, but then they don't have the willingness to walk away. Now, I think the women that have the willingness to walk away, before it even gets to the red-handed conversation, you're doing enough for me to not like this relationship. You're coming home a bit late. You're hiding your phone. You're doing enough for me to want to walk away. I don't need to check the phone to know that this is not a relationship that makes me feel good. But the ones that don't have the willingness to walk away and don't have the strength to walk away, they do all these micromanaging behaviors. And that's men and women. They do that. They micromanage rather than just walk away. It's better to, instead of going down that toxic route, just walk away beforehand.
Well, okay, so you actually just said something that made me think, well, what about the gaslighting?
Yeah.
Where we know many men
Yeah.
that will gaslight women that to make them, no, it's you. You're going crazy. I can't believe you're jealous. What
Yeah.
the, right? And so they'll freaking gaslight you
Yeah.
in making you think it's all you. So what would you do in that moment? Because sometimes you don't actually know, like, is it me? Am I going crazy? Like, you start to actually doubt yourself.
You know what? I try and reserve judgment on what to do in those situations because I don't know what I would do. And this is somebody who's from a professional background. I still don't know what I would do. What I have seen people do is they record conversations between them and their partner. And the reason they record conversations is because they actually want to see, am I the problem? Am I doing something? And when they record the conversations and they listen back, they see an abuser, a bully, and a victim, and then they realize. So I do understand that gaslighting can make you want to look for evidence, but I think better than looking for evidence is look for help. Either speak to somebody like a friend or somebody that you trust, or speak to a professional. Seek help first. A professional will give you an objective perspective if you are to blame or if it's them. If once you've sought an objective perspective, that should give you more clarity. Going down the route of checking phones and stuff, unfortunately, it can leave you with a PTSD that you don't know how to cope with afterwards. Oh. I've seen people who've seen pictures that they can't get out of their head, or they've read messages that they can't believe, and they can forgive everything else except what they saw. So sometimes it's more damage than it's worth. So I would recommend speaking to someone first.
Interesting. Okay, so sorry I interrupted you. So how do you, I don't want to say monitor your boyfriend?
Yeah.
Like,
no, I think the main thing I do is I check in a lot. And I recognize if there's any way of where we're being disconnected in any way, shape or form. We're always in contact or stuff like that. And that makes it very difficult for us to live separate lives. It would be very difficult for me to do anything and for him to do anything because we don't live separate lives. So I think it's that creating one life together as whilst having your independent space, but having one life together prevents anyone straying too far.
Well, where do you draw that fine line then of checking in and then being obsessive? Like, where are you? What time? Hang on, you haven't texted me back. 5 minutes later, hey, where are you? You said that you were going to call me.
I think when the conversations are soothing, it doesn't get to neurotic. What I mean by that is if you call Tom in the morning and he's at work and he's like, babe, I'm just in a meeting, I'll call you back in just an hour. What will happen is it can go 2 hours, you won't notice. But when he's ignoring you or he's like, oh, fuck's sake, can you just leave me alone for a minute? Of course you're going to become neurotic. So I would say the fine line becomes on the context of the conversation. If it's soothing, it will never cross boundaries. But if that conversation is hostile, then it turns into something more negative.
Oh, yeah, that makes complete sense. I have never checked Tom's phone, and I absolutely...
Has he ever checked yours?
No.
No, I've never had that. Yeah.
And the thing is that I do believe if I ever feel... And it's not that I, again, have the perfect marriage, but if I ever felt the inclination to need to check it, I would go to what's wrong in your marriage that you feel like you need to check his phone in the first place.
Would you ever check it, do you think? If it would ever got there?
No,
Yeah, I just don't think I would.
I would speak to him, right? I'd say, hey, babe, I have a weird feeling that I really want to check your phone because of this one text message or this one thing. And so I think we need to talk about why I don't trust you right now. Like, I think I would actually say those words to him.
But do you think it's because you've had a open connection around the phone? I think what happens, I always say, is your phone should be available, but not necessarily accessible. What I mean by that is, babe, can you pass me my phone? Or babe, can you just check that last message? When you have that kind of relationship with each other, no one feels so much need. But when it's so unavailable and it's so hidden, that usually creates that worry. But one thing I have noticed, I've had this a couple of times from clients. I'll have female clients that say, I had a dream that I should go through his phone, and I went through his phone and I found God knows what. Is that so weird?
It's your subconscious, I'm sure, right?
Yeah,
your subconscious is...
But they end up being right from the dream. But weirdly, and I hate to say this because I don't want people to start overthinking, getting paranoid with their dreams. But unfortunately, it's not necessarily that their dreams are always right, but the feeling that they're getting in the dream is very much mirrored in the feelings that they're having in real life. So sometimes I have clients, it's weird how women's intuition works.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It's freaking strong,
it's
homie.
So scary. It scares me how sometimes, but it's really difficult because women, we don't know the difference between intuition and insecurity. Intuition, it could be just there's some reality in that. Insecurity is usually past behaviors expecting your current position. So intuition could be something that's you've never felt it before, but for some reason you're feeling it now. That's probably an intuition. Insecurity is you bring this baggage with you in every relationship, in every situation. It's familiar. You do this a lot. So don't confuse intuition and insecurity.
That's fascinating. I think of intuition. So I've heard many people say, it's just the gut feeling. And I'm like, but I think it's trained.
Yeah.
Like from birth, if you look someone in the eye and they look away, over, I'm 44, like I said, over 44 years, it's taught me, if they look away when I ask them an uncomfortable question, it means they're uncomfortable. Yeah. So there's these micro expressions that you start to pick up, but they're so micro, it doesn't necessarily seep in as a conscious thought.
Right.
And so think about back in the days, in the caveman days, right, where women, I used this analogy the other day, but if you hear like a rustle in the forest, right, or in the jungle, it's usually, a wild animal that's going to eat you and the family. So if you hear a rustle, your instinct goes, oh shit, I remember the last time Aunt Jane heard the rustle and her family got eaten. So the rustle means that there's possible danger. And now what happens is you go, why do I feel like there's danger? Because your subconscious maybe heard the rustle in the jungle. Yeah. So I kind of think of that as being like a muscle that we've just trained in so many things, but we don't realize. Yeah. So your intuition now is screaming at you, pay attention, because maybe it's taken in all these small micro expressions over time that maybe your partner's been given that you haven't even identified as red flags, going back to something we were talking about earlier.
It's usually your soul is speaking to you.
Yeah.
What happens every time you ignore your soul and you just go by ego, you're driven by this person makes me feel good, this person makes me look good, this person is better than being alone, your soul will kind of gnaw at you until you speak to it, until you listen to it. And your soul will always tell you what's good for you and what's not good for you. And that doesn't mean you have to have a big blowout fight and you have to check their phones or anything like that. You just have to remember what's serving you and not serving you. And also, but be fair and rational. Don't assume that, because I'm so irrational, I like to be on the side of try not to...
You're irrational?
I'm irrational, yeah. So because I like to err on the side of being fair. Being fair. Are you sure this person deserves this level of scrutiny? Now, if the answer is definitely yes, absolutely, then you can take you can take action. But if they don't and it's your own traumas, try not to punish people for things that they didn't do or didn't cause in you.
All right, so take me through that actual experience. So you start to feel irrational. How do you know it's irrational? Because sometimes when you feel irrational, it doesn't necessarily compute in your head that you're irrational, because sometimes that emotion feels very real.
Yeah. Your emotion is caused by more assumptions than realities. So what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, my partner hasn't replied to a message. I could easily start to get angry around this, that, and the other. But the anger, where's that coming from? Well, I'm making assumptions that it must be someone's doing this, someone's doing that. There's more assumptions behind the emotion. But if it's reality, I've literally seen that a picture on Instagram where he's doing something, or I've seen, then it's not really, then it's not an emotion, it's just a reaction to what's happening in what we're faced with, the realities we're faced with. So if you want to assess whether that emotion is accurate, ask yourself, am I making assumptions or am I reality testing? If there's more realities, then it's accurate.
Oh, I love that. I'm such like a tactical person of in these moments because I don't trust my emotions.
Yeah.
I almost always go to like, it feels real.
Yeah.
At least, your emotions always feel real. Yeah. So I'm never trying to dismiss the feeling.
Yeah.
I just go, okay, this feels real, but is it accurate?
Exactly.
And then I go to, have I eaten? Have I slept? Yeah. What time of the cycle is it? Am I hot? As in like warm body temperature.
The cycle one is a really important one to bear in mind. It's something that we forget, but it does have a big influence on us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then how do you rationalize yourself out of that emotion?
I usually in that moment go, you can't rationalize your way out. Yeah. So step back.
Yeah.
Like do not react. If you're writing a text, do not send it. Like I just remind myself, the sober Lisa, and I call it emotionally sober. Yeah. The emotionally sober Lisa would tell you emotional Lisa now to not send that freaking text. Right. So if you still feel like that tomorrow, if you still feel like this in 3 hours, send the text or say the thing that I need to say. Otherwise, like that's how I kind of work through it.
How do you cope with the emotion in the meantime? Say if you want to wait a day before you send the message, how do you remain calm in that
I think
day?
it's know yourself.
Yeah.
So it's for me, I have to walk away. I have to shift my emotions. So it's like, let's go listen to an empowering song. Maybe work out, maybe draw. So I love artwork. You know, some people love to meditate. So like, it's always in hindsight. So it's like having that list ahead of time to be like, okay, what's my go-to cheat sheet? Because it is very hard for me personally to get out of my emotion when it's happening. And so I don't beat myself up. And so now I just go, okay, was I proud of the person I showed up to be?
Right.
And if the answer is no, then I go, cool, don't beat yourself up. You're a person who grows and improves, Lisa.
Amazing.
So how am I going to go out and improve next time? So sometimes it's like I had an irrational response, I reacted to it, and now it's that time frame between noticing my reaction, my response, the feeling, and then the response.
Okay.
So, okay, Lisa, last time you reacted immediately, that's not good. Give yourself 5 minutes. Now give yourself an hour. Now give yourself a day, like, right, that I'm not responded. And now I can get more proud of myself as I go versus expecting perfection.
Amazing. Because, and I'm one of these people as well, some people just can't soothe themselves in the time between having a conversation and then resolving it. They just can't soothe themselves. What I try and recommend to do in that time, if you can, is write down what you're feeling, but also write down a response letter, what you wish your partner would say to you. And so if I'm feeling anxious, write it all down, what I'm upset about. What do you want them to say? Now, if you start writing what you want them to say and you realize actually there's nothing they can say because everything they're saying, I already know this, they're right, actually. They do say these things. I'm not listening to it. In that process, you'll realize if they're actually wrong or not. But if it's like, this is what I would like him to say, and he's never said these things, and he's never reassured me of those things, that's a conversation that you need to have. Rather than just all your anxieties and all your accusations, change it to what you would like him to do and what you'd like him to say, and then try and relay that to him as a set of almost emotional instructions, rather than just accusations. They're not useful. He's saying to you, I don't know, this is what I'm angry about, doesn't actually help anyone. But if I write a response letter, this is what I would like you to say, and then teach him how to love me properly, we can actually resolve the conflict for future.
Oh, I love it. Teach him how to love me.
Yeah, you've got to teach everybody how to love you, unfortunately. We think that if I have to teach you, it means that you don't love me. It doesn't come naturally. But unfortunately, we have to teach everybody how to love us. Even when like somebody walks into your house, you might have to say, can you take your shoes off? Doesn't mean you don't love each other. You're just teaching each other boundaries. Something in love is we have to teach the partner. If I like to talk to you regularly, talk to me regularly. If I like to know where you are and you like to know where I am, let's do that. If I like space, give me space. We teach people rather than expecting them to guess it.
Is that where we're going wrong now then in the dating world, where we show up to be someone that we're really not? Because I've heard you say that, I've got a quote of yours, that current dating is just practice for divorce.
Yeah.
So explain actually what you mean by that, and then let's break that down.
Unfortunately, what's happened in our culture, and particularly with the advice that we're getting online, and it's even in the form of memes and like funny things, is we're learning how to kind of get over people, how to move on, catch fights, not feelings. I don't take no nonsense. Be like this, be like that. We're teaching people how to become hard. So how to cope when relationships break down rather than how to make relationships work. So we're taught that, you know, if your man isn't answering your phone, go straight to the club. Or if your man is doing this, you make sure you find somebody else. Or don't this. It's constantly how to cope with when things go wrong. Unfortunately, we're not teaching people with how to actually create a connection. So we don't have to learn the skills needed for a divorce. So what that would look like is openly communicating what you actually want rather than being scared to come across needy. So I had a client the other day and she was like, oh, I really like this guy. I just started talking to him, but he hasn't like asked me to see him recently, or he hasn't labeled it, but I don't want to look needy. And I said, so what if you look needy? Who cares? This is about your emotional needs. Now, if you like labels and you want exclusivity before you get intimate, you say that. If they like it, great. If they don't like it, you've lost somebody who's not right for you anyway. You've speeded out the outcome of somebody who's potentially going to waste your time. So go in with effective and open conversation if you can.
Is it that people are worried about the rejection? Like what is happening right now in the dating world?
People are scared to give their heart to anybody. They're so scared because they're prepared for somebody to hurt them. They're so prepared that somebody's going to embarrass them, hurt them, use them, that they're scared to give their heart. So in the process, they're becoming somebody that they're not. So they're becoming somebody hard, strong, doesn't want a relationship, happy to just have casual relationships, when really you know, from being married and stuff, but there's nothing quite like having a partner in crime in life. So unfortunately, they're becoming their own barriers to the connection that they truly want out of life. And I don't blame them. It's not an easy time to be single. Nobody seems to be wanting connection, even though everybody's craving it. Men are craving connection, women are craving connection, but they're not trusting each other with forming that connection, unfortunately.
So I'm actually glad that you said the men thing as well, because like, even though the show's called Women of Impact, like it's so important to me. Like I never want to put down men. Like I understand there are bad men out there that have been really freaking like just assholes, abusive. Like I am not excusing any of that. But there are also women who have cheated on their husbands, cheated on their partners, are total bitches. Like I am just coming from how do I empower women that really want to take the control, take their power back and feel good about themselves. Like that's what I'm all about.
It's a really hard time because you know what, and this is going to sound awful, but it's almost the best time to be a bitch as a woman. It's almost the best time.
Society tells you to.
Society has created the culture that rewards women who are narcissistic. It rewards women who use men for money. It rewards women who monetize their body and sell it, because what happens in those cases, those women know what they're dealing with. They know that they've got a guy who's a bit of an idiot. He's probably cheating on his wife to pay for my bills and this, that, and the other. But I'm not going to get too emotionally attached, and I get a house and my rent paid and a car out of it. That woman is now being rewarded. Now the problem.
Hi guys. Now one of the questions I get asked the most since I've been online is what books do I recommend? Is there any books that I can read to help me understand like some of the things you talk about? What self-help books did you read to get here? Now a fun fact about me is I suffer from very extreme ADHD. I am very much incapable of reading an entire book. I haven't read a book cover to cover since maybe I was 15 years old, unless it's for work, unless it's an academic reason that I need to read, I won't read. And but I really realized I'm missing out, right? Because there's so many amazing self-help books out there. There's so many great books for relationships. There's just so much information out there that you can't really capture without reading a book. And so I started looking online and I found this incredible website called Shortform. And what Shortform does is takes all of your best-selling books from any genre, whether it is from like self-help, autobiographies, all types of topics, and it simply condenses it for you. So you can read an entire book or understand the entire gist of the book within 10 minutes or so. And I literally go on there, I download a few of the best books on there, and I read them while I'm on the plane, or I'll know when to save them, and I might just skim over some of the really important details before I go onto a podcast. So for me, it's been a real time saver. It's been a real lifesaver because I've learned so much on it. And I really, really highly recommend that you go to www.shortform.com.